What's up, Salt Strong Nation? Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. Tackle Tuesday, popular demand. A lot of people asking for it. It's been, what do you think, guys? I got Wyatt, Tony, Luke on. It's been 2 months, maybe.
Back in action. Coming in hot. This is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one, and this is one that's come about because of COVID, right? We now have a tackle store, fishstrong.com. Many of you guys have been there. We're getting hundreds of orders in a day. Literally, we've had a couple days that we've broke 1,000 orders, and if any of you guys have online stores, you know that's a lot of orders, a lot of tackle going out, and it would be even higher if we were able to get stuff. So we put some like massive orders in for all the big products and everything from rods and reels, line, lures, etc. And what we're finding is a lot of the big names, the Daiwas and Shimano's and Penn on the reel side, they're out, right? I mean, they're manufacturers who are struggling just like everyone else to get any decent amount of inventory over to the retailers. And so that's forced a lot of us as anglers who still want to fish, still a prime time to go fishing here in the fall. And it's forced a lot of us to start looking at other types of equipment, right? Other lures. And we even talk about some different lines that we've been using with like surprisingly awesome results. And stuff that maybe doesn't get talked about a lot, right? Maybe we'll call it unappreciated. What's the word I'm looking for? Underrated lures. And Wyatt brought this up. I thought it was a heck of an idea. And a lot of people have been asking, like, hey, I can't find this particular lure, fill in the blank, anywhere. You know, what should I use right now? And so that's what we're going to discuss. So hopefully this is going live on Facebook as well. We'll be able to take some questions from the audience. Do you see it?
I see it. Questions already coming in.
Questions already coming in. Hey, from South Texas.
Just comments.
Evening from the UK. Hey, fellas. Dennis, the man, the artiste. That was a fun podcast with our boy Dennis there. So Wyatt, I'm going to let you kick it off since this was your idea. Why did this all come about? What's been your struggle? Has it been in the lure side of things? I know you're a lure guy.
Yeah. I pretty much fish like 99% artificial. It's very rare I pick up any kind of live bait. And the biggest thing for me that has been missing from stores lately has been hooks and jig heads. Mm-hmm. So, I have not been able to find my jig heads, and without jig heads, I can't fish my soft plastics. And I really like fishing Z-Man soft plastics, and it's been tough to find a quality jig head that's going to hold on to, that really tough Z-Man material. And I've tested out so many different types of jig heads over the past couple of weeks, trying to find one that would work well with the iStrike jig heads, the Z-Man iStrike, they're partners, Trout Eye and Redfish Eye that we talk about a lot. And I went through a bunch of different manufacturers, ones that really weren't great, some that were great. And the one that I settled on for being my new alternate is this Berkeley Fusion 19 jig head. They came out with this last year, and I really hadn't gotten a chance to play with it much. But if you guys can see, there's actually two different types of keepers on here. So what I found in testing this was it worked really well with super tough soft plastics because, not every lure that you buy is made of the same type of plastic. Z-Man super tough, Gulp is like the softest stuff out there. But this keeper I found worked with the widest variety of plastics out there. So, in searching for a new jig head, I found what, if I'm going to test a new type of soft plastic, this is probably the jig head I'm going to test just because every type of plastic I put it on, from really soft Gulps to really strong Z-Mans, it ended up holding it really well. It wasn't the best, it didn't hold Z-Man better than the actual iStrikes, and it didn't hold, the Gulp stuff as well as some other jig heads I've used. But the two different types of keepers, the cones that you see on like DOA, and then the barb that you see on tougher soft plastic jig heads, just was, really cool. So I've just been playing around with lots of alternatives for things like that.
And that's by Berkeley, you said? That's a Berkeley Fusion. So they fused together two different types of jig head features and called it Fusion.
Yep. That's it right there.
Brilliant idea.
That's good, actually good idea. And now we're giving Berkeley free advertising here on the show. And so as you guys know, who've been following us for a while, we love that Z-Man, that iStrike, the Trout Eye and the Redfish Eye. To me, that's tough to beat, but it's also impossible to find. We have a massive order I'm talking like tens of thousands of dollars of jig heads just from that one line, and we can't get it. They're so backed up, and it's been frustrating. I know we've been using Mission Fishing. Those gold jig heads showed up at the office. I was like, no way anyone is going to buy these, and the things like sold out. And I don't know if it was because we couldn't. You have some, Tony? Those gold ones?
Yeah, I was gonna say the nice thing about these jig heads is when you're using them and you have a plastic rigged up, when they sit on the bottom, they sit straight up. So if you're using like a gulp shrimp, or you're doing like a really slow presentation where you want that bait to sit on the bottom and have it sit up straight and natural, that's why these are really good. They have that football style head on them, as opposed to like the trout eye, where if it hits the bottom, your bait's just going to flop over on its side.
There's no rolling on that.
I used to only use the Mission Fishing. They have much terms for like boxing glove size, but it's like flat bottom, like Tony said. I used to only use it when using shrimp or cut bait, really just natural bait where it's soaking on the bottom. But I've been using it with the Slam Shady, just because I couldn't find those trout eyes because they're just hard to get, and they work just as good, I think. I mean, I'm becoming a huge fan of them. The only con is that this keeper is really big. It's really a pro and a con. Like this keeper is so wide that it can do some damage to some of the softer stuff. But I mean, in reality, like when in a pinch, the jig head, it's rare that you can use one jig head and not catch anything, and another one you're going to catch all sorts of fish. It's really about a jig head will just help you catch more fish per lure when it's paired prop. Like that one White showed, looks like a good solution because it doesn't do a lot of damage. But it also has that little spike that'll hold a soft plastic for a while. But when in a pinch, just get a jig head, and that's 90% battle, because the jig head isn't nearly as important as I used to think. So just get it, because in reality, these fish are following the lure. So even if you can't find the perfect color or whatever you want, they're usually following the lure. So all they see is the back of the tail. Like the last thing they're going to see, the thing they see the least is the head. So you just need something that'll hold your lure, and more importantly, have the proper depth, the right weight of jig head to cover the right depth. That's more important than having the perfect keeper or the perfect brand or whatever. So in a pinch, find some jig heads that are the right depths, or the right weights to cover the depths you need, and you're going to catch fish.
Yeah, only one in 10 redfish are judgmental jig head biters. So 9 out of 10 don't care.
Yeah.
I was going to show something too. If you're in a super pinch where you just don't have any jig heads and you're about to go fishing, can't go to the store, if you happen to have, J hooks and split shots, you can make your own jig head. Basically, you tie your hook on, preferably with a loop knot. That way you can put the split shot right over that loop knot, so it's right up against the eye, so it's not moving around too much. But it'll do basically the same thing as a jig head. The weight's forward on that bait, so it can dive down quicker. It can swim, straight like it would on a jig head. So if you are in a pinch, get yourself some split shots and some J hooks. I know we all pretty much have them laying around in the garage in a box somewhere. So little idea or tip right there too.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean, like that worm hook would be actually really good, because the split shot, since you clip it inside the loop, and it'll hold one side of the loop with the weight being pinched on it, and the other side would be in the little V that it makes. So that weight will probably stay there for, that's a great idea.
It's almost like an impromptu Texas eye jig head.
Yeah.
Do it yourself with Tony Acevedo.
Yeah, that's a way more affordable Texas eye rig right there.
Yeah.
You can even put a little sticker on it and you have a little eye, man, you're set.
Oh, yeah.
And it keeps it weedless if you're using that wide gap hook.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, we're going to do arts and crafts on the next podcast with Tony and show how to build these things. I saw John had asked a question about using super glue. And Luke, you pointed out, I mean, the key obviously for a great jig head is, one, it's not going to roll if you are using it in the scenario Tony talked about, but two, you really just want your soft plastic to stick on there and not keep sliding off. Do you guys use super glue at all?
I don't.
So I see some nods. Yes. Wyatt, and
I've experimented with it. I don't think there's any kind of scent or anything that scares fish off, but when the lizard fish are really thick here in the Carolinas, they're an absolute scourge. They will rip baits off your hook, even Z-Mans. So if you super glue the head of that, Z-Man, to something that's got like a flat, like you can't do it with the eye strikes, but if you've got like a flat, I'm trying to move so the camera can see. For those of you who can see the video, you got to have a flat style of jig head. If it's just, it goes straight to the barb, to the weight, there's nothing to glue it on. But if you've got like one of those, like the Redfish Magic jig heads that have a really flat surface on them, if you dab a little super glue on there, squish the soft plastic up against there, you're not going to get it off. That's a con to it as well, though, is, the trash fish aren't going to be able to rip. I call it pulling your pants down. Basically, they pull the.
Hey, this is family friendly here, Wyatt.
they basically just pull the soft plastic all the way down to the shank where the hook bends. But it's just a pain to have to go back and put that soft plastic re-rig properly, because if it's not rigged properly, it's not going to swim right. Which is why I'm really picky about my keepers. But the super glue does help as well. I just don't do it too often. If I'm like rigging up the night before and I know I'm going to be throwing a specific lure all day, I'll dab a little bit on, but I don't bring it out in the kayak with me or anything.
And Luke, no. Tony, no.
No, never did the super glue.
Yeah, I've never tried. I've always been worried about the scent, that glue scent being a detractor. Also, just the patience on having to wait for it to dry. I'm usually in a hurry when I'm making a change. And what glue do you use, Wyatt? Is it like a fast dry type thing, or
it's
the night before?
I do it the night before, but it's I can't remember what it's called. It's just that little. It's the same stuff that I patch my kayak up with. It's that blue bottle of. It's like really quick drying super glue. Like if you don't separate your fingers before you finish applying it, your fingers will be stuck together. So I don't remember exactly what it's called. You can pick it up at any hardware store. Just fast dries.
Mark Johnson is saying use the gel type super glue in the Chesapeake area. I mean, isn't super glue? Isn't that what makes it different than just normal glue? Elmer's glue? Is it dry?
Don't use Elmer's glue. I would not recommend doing that. I use the really, really tough stuff because those like pinfish and lizardfish, they come up, they don't bite the jig head, they're grabbing the tail, and like that's what pulls your soft plastic down. So you need something that's really, really strong. That Elmer's, it's not strong at all. So I'd use
certainly not waterproof.
Yeah, one trick, because that's going to happen regardless.
My wife is on here. Gorilla Glue, yeah, that's a good one. That dries.
Gorilla Glue, yeah. There's always going to be some stuff that's it's the fish pulling back on it. And one thing that it's not, nothing's perfect, but one trick is just to push the bait up a little bit further, and then push down right where the keeper is, and that'll just make sure that those little barbs, right? I'll pull it out here. That just makes sure that you get new material underneath the barbs, or I guess inside the barb. So and then even do a slightly different angle sometimes helps. You just have to make sure it doesn't mess up the swim of your bait. So there's like little small tricks that you can do to get more life. I need to try that glue. I've always just been afraid of having a bad scent, but I think that'd be a cool thing to test too. Is how many fish you can catch per bait, and hey, when you're using it versus not using it, are you getting less strikes with the glue, or does it not matter?
Cody Self says, whoop, whoop. Cody Self, I'm disappointed, dude. You're normally one of the first people to comment. You got in late. Tom Ray has a question. Captain Tom Ray is kind of 50-50 on, is it a real question or not? Luke, when I bass fishes, I used Nanofill line from Berkeley. Have you ever tested it? It can cast a mile. Might be susceptible to wind knots, though.
Yeah, I haven't used that yet. I've heard of it. I've heard good things, but I just haven't had a chance to test it. It's on my list of lines to test out.
All right. So what else? We talked about jig heads. What's another unique rig that really works well when you're in a pinch? Maybe an underappreciated rig. What else are you guys doing? Tony, you use all kinds of funky stuff over there. Chase baits.
I was gonna first mention if you're in a pinch and need a popping cork and you don't have popping corks with you, and
do it yourself with Tony Acevedo.
And you see other people around you maybe catching fish using popping corks. If you have a topwater, you can basically turn it into a popping cork. Just remove that back hook. I'll actually keep the front hook on just in case they do hit the topwater, but just attach, not too much leader to the back end, maybe a foot or two, however deep you're fishing. You don't really need much. And then I'll just attach that leader, with a jig head or just a weighted hook or something like that. And whatever lure you prefer to use, artificial shrimp, live shrimp, paddle tail can work really good behind that. We actually have a video about that. You can also check out.
You can even use flies too. So if you can't find like normal lures, you can actually go to the fly fishing section and get a fly, because now that you have that popping cork and you have the actual lure, you can sling those flies as far as you can cast the lure. And you now have a popping cork that'll catch fish too. So
That's my kind of fly fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tony did that video and like destroyed the fish. And remember, right afterwards, everyone was going out and getting their topwater lures and taking that back hook off and putting, a leader and, a shrimp or slam shady. And we saw tons of people posting pictures in the Insider Club saying they just caught a monster fish using that. So it definitely works.
It's always fun to try something new, especially if you're in a spot where fish are biting and you want to try out a new lure or something you haven't used before. That's like, to me, that's the best feeling. Like, yeah, I caught a fish on this new lure I never used before. But it really comes down to just being in the right spot.
Love it. What else? What else have you found you're having to try something new? Is there any specific type of tackle that you just can't find because of all of COVID?
As far as I know, you mentioned chase baits. They're shrimp lures. Seems like they always have these in stock, and they're super realistic, as you can see there. This is a chase baits flick prawn, artificial shrimp, and they come pre-rigged. And now they actually have two different weights. This was the original one. It was pretty light and hard to cast. Now they have a heavier one, which is a 1/4 ounce, and it casts really well. And if I ever need artificial shrimp lures, those are usually my go-tos because they seem to always have them. Chasebaits.com. We're supposed to be getting them on the shop page, I believe, too, whenever that comes through. But these work really well, super durable. You can catch tons of fish on just one. Just make sure you rinse them off at the end of the day, because the hook can rust out, especially with it being pre-rigged, or just take the hook completely out, rinse it off. That way it doesn't rust out, last you longer, because the hook will actually go before the lure itself actually does.
Are you not ever having puffers or anything snap the tail off?
Not that I've experienced. I don't know if I just haven't been in an area with puffer fish or what. I know it seems like the West Coast gets a lot more puffers than we do on the East Coast.
This is true.
Closer to the inlet has more. Like Sebastian, I used to get a lot of puffers there, but when fishing Banana River, I don't remember ever getting puffers when I lived over that way.
And puffers can chew through anything. I think I saw a video one day. Someone held a Coke can or a Pepsi can or something up to it that was cut, and it chewed right through the aluminum.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I have not seen a single soft plastic that's puffer proof. Those things are brutal.
Nah.
My no telling how much money they cost me over the years on lures.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Is those shrimp, they're not cheap. Those chase bait shrimp.
No, they're $10 each, but you buy a pack of soft plastics, you're going to go through that entire pack of soft plastics in one day, about the same price, if not 2 bags. So one has lasted me for months. But
not one cast. It guarantees the chase baits can be one bad cast. Oh,
yeah. You lose it.
Cool. What about you, Luke? I know we talked about line, the whole mono versus fluoro. Have you gone almost 100% to mono, or are you still using some fluoro?
Yeah, I don't use fluoro anymore. I've been for like the last 2 years. I was going back and forth. I'll use fluoro if I'm running out of mono, but like I've been switching back and forth, and I just haven't seen a difference. Even going down to the Keys, like in clear water, and I think maybe if it's I'm using lures most of the time, so there's gonna the lures attracting a lot of action. If doing I think the time where it would make a big difference, or at least it could, is when like triple tail or yellowtail fishing, when it's just totally everything's super slow. The fish are used to being targeted, and you're just having to make just everything possible to make sure the fish can't see it. But the reason why is that just on like the knot strength, I've tested out the knot strength and the abrasion resistance, and consistently regular monofilament line has outperformed the much more expensive fluorocarbons. So that's the reason. And most of my fishing is in water that's not crystal clear. So I just know that when I'm using mono, I'll have a better shot of landing the fish without seeing a noticeable decrease in strikes. So like that's it. Like that's really the reason, and it just helps that it saves a bunch of money too.
Ton of money.
So that's good.
Ton of money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like it's not in a contest. There's a 25 yard spool of like like CR fluorocarbon. Yeah, that right there. That's like $20, sometimes 24, 25, depending on where you're getting it from. And this is what I've been using, this Andy, and this is a 50-yard spool for under $5. So it's twice as much line for more than I guess 25% of the price. I don't have my calculator on me, but that's a pretty big difference.
More world records caught using Andy mono than any other leader in the world.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
By
Makes sense.
far. And obviously they have a little bit of a head start. They've been around for a long time, and that used to be what everyone used, right?
But back to the lures is like when in a pinch, and this is actually fun to do, but pretty much anything that a bass eats, largemouth bass, because most of us started bass fishing. I was a total bass addict before I started getting into inshore saltwater. So I've been pulling out some bass lures, and this is one. You can see how old this thing is, right? It's almost decaying off there, and this thing works. And this is actually one of my favorite topwaters. It's just because it's fun. Like not many people use it. It's a Bullfrog Lure, and it works shotgun. Like literally in one tournament, this is an inshore tournament. I placed a trout and a redfish and it was like a 40 boat tournament. Obviously, most of it's getting in the right spot, but this thing, here's how I rig it. It's weedless. It'll go right over when seagrass is floating on the surface, and it just totally wrecks all topwaters because they have open hooks. This thing just glides right over it. It skips extremely well under mangroves. This is like one of my little secret lures, and I haven't really talked about it publicly. It's in the Redfish course, and I did a few insider tips, but I'll do some lessons on how to use it because it's fun. And so I'll do some. Because I've caught one of my biggest trout ever on it. I've caught a bunch of good reds. I still haven't caught a tarpon on it, but I've jumped 3, and I've had like at least a dozen hit it. It's fun. It's just a lot of it. The only problem is you can't cast it quite as far. So it's not like the best topwater ever. You can't cast quite as far as like a Super Spook Junior or a Skitter Walk, but
it's and the same reason the bass guys use it is you can put it up into some nasty structure, right? I mean, you can get that thing 100% weedless and throw it in some nasty stuff that a normal Spook Junior with its treble hooks is not going to have a chance at. And you could skip that thing. I think it's an awesome lure.
Yeah, so it's fun. So I have it rigged up. I'm going to do some lessons on it. So I'm going to, as soon as we get some good weather, I'll get out there in the morning and give it a whirl. But I used to use it all the time, and it's kind of one of those things I almost forgot about it, and then forget it. I just kind of been off, and obviously it's about decaying in the package, and I just haven't used it in a while. But it's a lot of fun.
And about bass fishing lures too, they're all very similar to the saltwater stuff. So if you're in the saltwater section and you notice your favorite paddle tails are not there, go check the freshwater section, because I guarantee you they'll probably have the same style in a freshwater brand of that paddle tail. So definitely be sure to check that out. And I saw a comment from Tom Ray wishing the chase baits shrimp would be rigged backwards. And you can actually rig it backwards yourself. Just pop the hook out. As you can see, I've now rigged this one backwards.
Just completely voided the warranty.
Just pop the hook out, flip it around, put the eye of the hook into the slot where the hook point usually was. And all I did was barely run the point of the hook through the nose of the shrimp, just enough so that if a fish does strike it, that hook point will be exposed. And this material is so tough, you can just barely poke it through there and it will stay for a good amount of time. And you can pull it backwards if you need to, but honestly, I don't think the fish care.
Have you tried it on the water? Because that worked?
I've rigged it up like that and tried it. I haven't caught anything yet. I usually sight fish with this. Great sight fishing bait. So when the water clears up, I'll probably start doing that.
What does Tom think, that like shrimp flee backwards or something? Like what is he thinking, huh?
Shrimp naturally swim forwards. And when they're scared, they flee backwards, but not sure if fish cares too much.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing not, since almost every pre-rigged shrimp, is the way is the forward facing, not reverse fleeing. That is interesting though. We got to do a test on that.
Yeah, but even as far as lures, it looks like, why you got? Oh, you got a backwards one.
Yeah, this is the Patrick Sabile that we're testing out right now. Mark sent us a couple, but yeah, just trying them out. I've not had any opportunities yet, just because it's not gotten cold enough here to really go hard on shrimp lures.
And I ran out of super glue.
Yeah. I mean, I'm running through all my paddle tails so fast still, just because it's all completely bait fish right now, which, I mean, I can talk next about when we wrap this one up about some new paddle tails I've been using, because I'll run through my bombers. Like, those are by far best paddle tails out there right now, but I'm going through them really fast because it's all I'm using. And I've found some others that have been working okay. But we're still on the subject of shrimp lures.
Oh, hey, move to the bomb or the paddle tails.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been using the bomber a lot. The bomber. Yeah. It casts super far, skips really well. I've been getting up under dock stuff with it. Just casting open flats. And what's really cool about those is I can kind of change the size around. If I see the bait's a little bit smaller, I'll rip some more of the head off. But I was at a Bombers the other day. Went through the pack that I brought out on the water with me, and I saw a red in like just a couple inches of water. And Luke's seen the video, but I threw this MirrOlure marsh minnow. We have this on our shop, but I was wanting to test it out because I know a lot of insiders have talked about it, but I also really like chartreuse tails, really dirty water like we got here in the Carolinas. But this thing looks exactly like a mud minnow. If you look at like the anatomy of a mud minnow, and I don't know why I haven't used this yet, because I really like fat body paddle tails because they just have a lot more swing to them. But the fatness on this lure, it's got so much vibration to it. And I pitched this thing in front of a red, and it took me 3 casts, and he just absolutely inhaled it, and it was in just a couple inches of water. It was like one of the coolest eats I've ever had, and it was just barely any movement, but I could tell the vibrations what keyed him in, because every time I was just twitching it, this thing's just got so much swing to it. That's what makes the bomber really good as well, and why it's been working really good for me too in dirty water. It's got like really, really fat paddle tail, which is what I look for in like any paddle tail, just because in dirty water I want as much vibration as I can get. But if you run out of bombers and you're waiting for them to come in from the Salt Strong shop, try out that MirrOlure marsh minnow. I have had some good success with it in situations where I would use the bomber when I don't have them.
The bomber. And we got bombers in at fishstrong.com. Insider members right now, we're doing 30% off, right, Luke? 30% on the bomber
off. And if Wyatt had the bomber rigged on, he would have hooked the fish on the first cast and not the third.
Not 3. That's embarrassing with your little marshmallow. Is it marshmallow or marshminnow? Might as well call it marshmallow. That's real cute, Wyatt. Yeah, the bombers. So we've taken out 2 different people, and this was all in October. That came with Luke and I. One gentleman who was interviewing for a job, he was a little bit nervous, and it's a job interview. And we actually told him, like, you got 2 hours and you have to catch a fish, and we are going to put you in a good spot. And so Luke and I both caught multiple fish. He still hasn't caught anything. And we gave him, I won't say what lure, but it was a unique lure. It was not the bomber. It was not something that we're even selling right now. So we kind of made it a little bit tough for him. It's something he had never used before. And then guess what? We finally gave him the bomber, and the dude, starts catching some fish and getting some good strikes. And then the other story, remember we had Chris out there, completely live bait dude, and not really much of an artificial lure guy. Even, the rod and reel he brought were like for fighting 100-pound tarpon. And we gave him the bomber, and what do you know? The dude starts catching redfish with it. So it works. It's so simple. And it casts a mile. So you can get a little bit further back when you position your boat or your kayak, and that thing is just flat out working. It's weird because I've heard some people say it's so big, it's only attracting big fish. And there's been some really big fish caught off it. And I've also heard some people say they have had some pinfish and junkfish, slap the tail off. So I don't know. I haven't lost that many tails on it. But just like any soft plastic, unless it's Z-Man or Tony's Australian chase baits, most soft plastics will take a beating and they start getting hit by tons of pinfish and or pufferfish. The bomber.
Even when the tail's off, I don't want this turn into a bomber pitch, but even when the tail's off, the bomber does work well. It's a darting bait. It looks like a super spook. Because I've been using the Bone Super Spook Junior, and I was in an area with, I don't know if it was puffers or just giant pinfish, but I was losing my tails. It's driving me crazy. And I didn't feel like switching. I was, let me just see if this works. And it literally looked like my Super Spook Junior underwater. As long as it's rigged properly with a weighted hook, so it's not helicoptering. When you're doing the twitches, since it doesn't have that paddle tail, which is, really it's water drag, it's slowing it down. It does all these darts, and it'll dart one way, then dart the other. And like I caught a couple legit trout with it, and just using it in that short period of time. It dives down a little bit deeper, right? Because it doesn't have that water drag, which lifts it up in the water column. So just with the weighted hook, I was fishing in like 3 feet of water, a little bit deeper. And generally I have to use a jig head if I'm using a paddle tail. But it was surprisingly good. So as long as it has good, I think the core lesson, regardless of what lure it is, as long as it has good action in the water, meaning that it looks like an injured bait fish, a paddle tail without the paddle can actually be really good. And so a lot of people, and I'd been a mistake for many years, as soon as I would lose that tail, I'm mad at the world. The puffer just bit it on my first cast, and I throw it away. And then reality, like, no, it actually works pretty good. Like save those tails as long as it's I don't want to rip this one because I'm running low on my Slam Shadies. Everything's hard to get. But as long as there's at least, if it's just like a pure nub, like that's not going to work. It's going to helicopter. But as long as there's at least, some, I'd say like half and half of the hook is still there. Like this right here, I've caught some extremely good fish with, because it has really good darting motion. But if it gets to the point where there's like just not enough to have like a kind of like a rudder to keep it from just being a helicopter in the water, it'll catch fish. And you'll see.
I caught them on the nub, dude.
What's that?
I've caught them on the nub when you have the smaller trout eye hook.
Yeah, I mean, it's the odds go down, like and you'll see it in the water.
With that attitude, you're probably right.
Well, you'll see in the water, like when you have it rigged properly and you're doing, just give it a little twitch. If it does like a dart, and whether it goes up, down, if it does a dart and pauses, it's going to catch fish. If it's doing a helicopter, right? If it's tumbling around, that's not natural, and nothing's needed. But if it has a nice motion, and that's, I guess, the core of this thing is just, as long as it has a nice motion, it'll catch fish. Fish are reacting to the motion more so than they are like having to examine to see if every little detail is in place, where the eye, there's these 2 eyes, and if you have a crab lure, it has to have however many legs a crab lure has, 5 legs. They're not counting it. They're just looking for the motion. If it triggers, hey, this is a meal, they're going to eat it without thinking. So
yeah. We got a new member, Scott Denny, new insider member. Just ordered some bombers. So I'm going to write your name down, Scott. First and foremost, welcome to the family. And I'm going to write your name down. I want to see a report from you. And then we're going to give him 10 days. So it's fair because of work, 10 days to catch a fish and post it in the community. And it might be a little surprise for you. Might just be a virtual high five, but it'll be something. Tony Rodriguez says, I caught a nice snook first time using the bomber. The bomber. Man, a lot of
guy must be the name.
The bomber.
Yeah. And I'll say on other lures too, just like unique things is and Tony mentioned before, but like a Texas rig, like just getting like an old school bass stuff, like for tarpon, I saw a bunch of little small tarpon in the Hillsborough River, and I couldn't get them to eat anything. It was driving me crazy. And I heard that little black flies worked well, like little small flies were good for tarpon. I didn't have any black flies. And I had my freshwater tackle box, and I was just going through it, and I found a black plastic worm, like a little plastic worm. It was 6 inches, and I had the bullet weights for bass fishing, like a Texas rig bullet weight, and the worm hooks. And so I just tore the worm in half. So I just had like a 3-inch little tail end of the plastic worm, Texas rigged it, and I trolled that worm through the air where I was seeing tarpon, and I hooked up the very first time. I jumped a tarpon. So I was like so pumped up. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally solved it. And then I trolled back and forth about 10 more times and didn't catch anything. but it was like, although I didn't catch it, it was just a cool experience, because I never would have even considered using a plastic worm for tarpon. And it's surprising when you do an experiment, it can actually work. and it just makes it that much more special when you catch a surprise fish like that.
Yep. What about good old fashioned gold spoon, right? That's another one that is probably underrated because everyone knows it works. It's been catching fish before our time. And yet it doesn't really get the love and attention that it needs. And I know everything's been tough to get, but you can still find some good old gold spoons, even just some no-namers that usually still work. I know we like our Johnsons the best, but gold spoon, you can't go wrong.
Yep. And if you don't have a gold spoon, if you have a silver spoon, you can paint it gold.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, more DIY.
No, I haven't used any silverware yet. Haven't tried that one.
But and also it doesn't have to be gold too. And because I growing up, it was all gold spoon. It was gold spoon. If you're using a spoon, it's got to be gold. And so that was all I threw. And last year I did a test on the Johnson Silver Minnow. The Silver Minnow is the name of it, and it was a gold colored Johnson Silver Minnow. And what's the name of those the white lure? Yeah,
Aqua Dream.
Yeah, Aqua Dream. Yeah, it was Aqua Dream, and all I could find was white. And so it was literally a painted white spoon, and it worked extremely well. I was blown away. It actually it worked best for snook. So in all days I tested, I was doing 3 casts one, 3 casts the other, and just kept doing it for 3 trips. And every trip, both spoons caught fish, but it seemed the snook seemed to gravitate towards the white spoon, and the redfish seemed to gravitate towards the gold spoon, which was interesting.
Did
they
it
both work?
Was the white matte white, or was it like metallic, like reflective is what I'm saying?
It was white. Let me see. I don't know where. I have no idea where it is now, but it was like a legit like piece of paper white. And I thought it was kind of silly, but I heard that worked. I was like, might as well. I was the only way I could find it. Might as well test it. And it was, and even when we were fishing, Joe, with Hollywood down in the Keys, he got his spoon is like black. It was like black and gold or something, but it was like pretty much just pure black, and that was his favorite one. So I've never tried that before, but it's surprising how the variations can still get a ton of fish.
So question, and I want everyone to put a comment in here. How many beers do you think the executives at Johnson were drinking when they're looking at a gold spoon and said, guys, let's come up with a great name for this, and like, let's call it the Silver Minnow to really confuse people? So they call it a gold spoon, the Silver Minnow.
Or they started with a silver spoon and the gold was the next one.
Anyway, guaranteed beers in that meeting. The question is how many beers?
Maybe it was originally the silver, then they added gold later.
That's the logical approach to it.
Tony, how many beers have you had? That's the question.
None today.
But yeah, so spoons, like I think Joe's right there. They don't get much attention for whatever reason. I think a big part of it is they just don't look good, like in a store, right? Like if you're in a store and you're looking at the whole, like with like live targets and all these things that look super realistic, and then you see this piece of metal that's slightly curved and doesn't even have any eyes, or it doesn't even look like you can't tell exactly what it is. You think that it's not going to work at all, but it's one of those things that's time tested. I always have at least one spoon on me every trip. I do mostly soft plastics, but when those puffers are bad, which happens a lot over here in the Tampa Bay region, I mean, you're going to go through a ton of soft plastics if you're not careful. And as soon as I see issues with puffers, it's the spoon, either topwater or spoon is what I go to. And spoon is those things are, nothing can mess those up. They're unstoppable. The only bad thing is they'll twist line up a little bit, but it's worth it. Like those spoons are sick. And even on windy days, they cast through the wind. They'll punch right in that wind. Like right now, the wind's cranking, and if I was going to go out, a spoon would be at the top of the list.
Mark asked, what's the best way to retrieve a spoon? You guys doing straight retrieve, or do you do a little pause and let it drop for a second?
Both. I did a test on it. There's a video on it. I was fishing with our dad, and it was I had the camera on the.
Who is a spoon master, by the way?
Yeah, who like he owned me, and because I was filming the whole time. The camera was on the console of the boat, and both of us were fishing up front, and he was catching fish right in my face, like consistently, and it was driving me crazy. And because like he had the old line on his reel, so there's a big gap on his spool. So I was out casting by far, like because my spool was like as soon as I get a gap in that spool, I replace my line. So anyhow, he was owning me, and so I was looking at the tape. I was like, what is he doing different? We're using the same spoon, and my retrieve is generally straight. I don't do much action. And Dad, like we were kind of talking. He wasn't. I don't know if he was doing it on purpose or what, but he was. I noticed his rod tip was doing a lot of fluctuation. And I think that was it. Like, I think just that variability on the speed, it totally wrecked me. Like, it wasn't even close. So I think the straight retrieve, I don't know, Chris, what do you guys do? I used to always do straight. Now I kind of vary it. And do you guys do one or the other?
Yeah, I vary it. I almost fish it like the paddle tail, do like a steady retrieve. And then every now and then I'll raise a rod tip or I'll pop it once, see what the fish are most interested in.
My favorite is you basically I'm almost always just picking up slack with a spoon, because what I'm doing is like just pulling my rod to the side and just letting it kind of go, and then I stop, pick up slack so it's fluttering down, move it again. I think that's what your dad was actually doing in the video, because I watched that video right around the time I joined Salt Strong, and I was like, that's how you fish a spoon.
Yeah, he wrecked me.
Yeah.
And if anybody, it's there, it's online. So the easiest way to find it is just how to retrieve a spoon. If you just Google search that, you'll see it. And you can see it shows, I basically showed his cast all the way to when he caught one or when he got the strike. And it's a subtle difference. Like I actually had to like be mindful of looking at, like I didn't notice at all when we were actually fishing together. And I was blown away.
Luke, Drew asked, any idea when the TFO rods will be available? That's the $1 million question, Drew.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, it's been really tough just getting really all types of equipment right now with COVID. Because what happened is the manufacturers, the actual manufacturing is behind, because if somebody gets COVID, they have to shut down, clean everything up, and the demand is increased, is elevated compared to normal, because I mean, people aren't traveling now. So in free time, more people are out fishing.
And they can't get the components. Like all these guides or Fuji guides are made in Japan and China, and no one could get them.
Yeah. So it goes back. So like the manufacturing, it's not just the rod makers, it's really everybody. And so it's been really tough. And supposedly it's getting very close, but we just unfortunately can't give promise dates, because we can't control anything until it gets to our office. So hopefully soon. We've heard that it'll be soon, but we just unfortunately can't give any dates.
Here's the good news, and there might be someone watching who works at some of these companies, and they'll agree with this. All the manufacturers have a whole lot to lose if they don't get products out, around Thanksgiving or even earlier. Meaning, the two biggest times of the year in general for tackle sales are in the summer, when just a lot of people are out boating and fishing, and then obviously Christmas time and basically starting around Black Friday. So they're all like this month, like they're working around the clock to get stuff. So a safe answer is it will be soon, and it has to be sometime like this year, meaning, before the end of the 2020 year. Just because they don't want to miss out either. All these retailers will renege on all their orders if they're not going to have it in before Christmas. So everything seems to be kind of moving. We're slowly, we got some reels in just recently. It depends on what day you guys listen or watch this for the recording. I know we're live right now doing this, but depending on when you listen to it, we're getting stuff in every day. And so keep checking fishstrong.com. You're going to see literally more stuff is being added and replenished up every single day.
And one thing to add too is on there, we added, since this has been an issue, is we have a feature on the shop on fishstrong.com on every product, and even by SKU, is you can sign up to get notified as soon as we get them in stock, so that you can be the first one to get them. So yeah, if you are interested in a TFO rod or whatever, you can actually go on there and basically sign up to get an email notification as soon as we get them in.
Definitely do that, because we had, what was the one? It was the ballistic. I think it was the ballistic reels. We only got like 4 of them in, and we had that many people who put the notifications, and those things were gone in minutes. Captain Peter Deeks is on here. Captain Peter Deeks, the dude has been slaying it. You guys watching Peter Deeks' Instagram page?
Oh, he's always catching those giants. He's got a knack for those giants.
He like cuts the line before the, if this is not going to be 40 inches, I don't have time for this, slowing me down. I'm just kidding. He never cuts the line. But man, I've never seen so many 40+ inch redfish and snook. Jeez.
Even we were fishing with him, we caught some over 40 inches, and he was a little bit upset we didn't get any 50s. It was like 50s. He's like, dude, I was like, I'm super pumped catching these 40s. You kidding me? And then I see an email message from Scott. Didn't he asking about the rod, or talking about the rods? And he asked if we sell, if we only sell 7.6. The answer is no. We do have 7s as well. It just varies on the different manufacturer. And again, right now there are actually some bull bays that are, I believe we have bull bays in stock now that are 7s. Most of the 7.6s are sold out. But again, you should be able to sign up in on that little drop down for the selection. You should be able to see a length as well as the different power ratings within that length.
Yep. Cool. What else, guys? What are some other lures or unique tackle rigs that is working?
I got one right here. And me and Luke have fought a lot about what the best topwater is. I'm not going to say this is the best topwater, but I would, throughout the summer and into the fall, I was really, really interested in doing a lot of topwater testing. And one that really, really surprised me, that if, you can't find those super spooks, which I will admit right now, like, they've caught me more personal bests and probably more fish than any of the topwater I've used. But this one is very niche. If you're looking at it on the video, it's not a normal looking topwater. It's the Yozuri 3D pencil. And this, I will only use this under one condition, but it has outperformed a lot of my other topwaters in that condition. And that's fishing in less than 2 feet, which is not a normal topwater range for me, for redfish specifically. This lure sits, and I've done like a full review on this thing if you guys want to see how it moves in the water and some of the fish I'm about to talk about. But it sits almost vertically in the water. So it's very, very unique. But the reason that's great for redfish is that, their mouths are not designed to hit topwater. They hit topwater a lot, and it's very exciting because they hit it really aggressively. But because their mouths hinge downward instead of upward, like the trout and snook that we, probably catch more on topwater with, they have to come up much higher out of the water to hit that lure. And everyone's been there where a red's come and hit your topwater and sent it 5 feet in the air. It's because it couldn't get its mouth on it. It actually hit it with its forehead. But this one sits really low in the water, and it comes up, and it's super easy for those reds to suck this one down. And I actually caught my personal best red on this one right here. This is actually the same. You can probably still see the scratches from it. But this thing is just great. I would like to get in a boat with Luke and try and fish it against his
challenge.
What did you catch your biggest trout on?
You got me, Super Spook Junior. No, I'm not gonna disagree with that. I catch a ton of reds on my Super Spook Junior. Like, it's and when I'm fishing in more than that 2 foot range, I do not ever take this out of the box. This is super, super niche. And it rarely comes out, but when I do get the opportunity to, I love fishing with it. It's not great for any other species I've found. I've tried using it. I've tied it on a ton of times. Had a lot of times where I've not had success with it, but when I'm in that really, really shallow water and I'm using it specifically where I know that redfish are, usually I find them with the spook first. But I'll pull this out, and I have a really good time fishing it. It's just one of those lures I think is underrated, just because it's unique. And I thought it was definitely worth mentioning in the podcast today. I'm not saying it's the best topwater at all. I'm not saying that, but it's very fun to use. And I recommend you at least try it once when you're on like a really, really shallow flat or something like that.
Too funny. All right. There's some questions. I saw we'd missed one. Mark Johnson asking about snakeheads. Ironically, we had talked to Darren O'Brien. I don't know if you know that name, Mark, but talked to Darren, who's a writer for quite a few of the kayak magazines, about doing some snakehead fishing. It's certainly unique. I heard they fight like crazy. Have you guys ever caught snakeheads? Wyatt, you have the one guy in North Carolina. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was when I lived in Florida. Give me a break.
I mean, I hear it's very similar to when you're fishing for peacock bass down south. It seems to be sort of like a bycatch. Some people target snakehead specifically. Some people are targeting peacock bass and will get snakehead striking their lures.
Cool. What action of rod do you guys like to use for lures? What do you guys think?
I do fast action for all mine. Like all these
wow.
rods back here behind, those are all fast action rods, and the action is where in the rod the bend happens. And so for lures, the reason why fast action is, I think, generally best is because it's just the top part of the rod. You can maybe even see it on this thing, but it's just the top part bends. So you can have to back up a little bit.
Let me use my strong hand.
Just that very top part's bending, and what it does, it just has a quicker release. So like when you are casting, it's gonna release a little bit quicker, and I think it just helps get a little bit more tip speed and casting distance. It's not as good for live bait because that quick release is going to be a little bit too quick to keep the bait still on the hook, and so you can actually cast your baits off more frequently when using the faster action rods. But like in general, if you go to like a store and you see like the super high end ones that are like the $400 and $500 ones, the majority of them are like the fast to extra fast action. So I don't, I do have some moderate action, which is again, the bend is further down from the tip. They still work fine. I just feel like it's a little bit easier to cast the fast action ones. What do you guys use? Fast as well?
I do.
Yeah, fast action. It also seems to have a bit more sensitivity too. So if you're using something that's pretty light, one thing, it'll cast it out really well, but you'll also be able to feel it better when you're retrieving it. And all my rods are all the same. I don't like having rods with different actions because it just feels different. I like to get used to the feeling of a specific action and power, because then I can, just based on how I'm using it, you just get used to it, and you can, change the way you retrieve the lure based on the lure itself, not so much the rod, if that makes sense.
Yep. And you guys tried the new Bull Bay, the Bolt?
I haven't. I haven't tried on the water. It feels nice. I've just felt it, and it's
you have it, right? Didn't we get one in or test one or something? Or
no, not yet.
Okay. What was the one that is that top secret?
Stealth Sniper is the one that I've been testing. I really like, and we actually just got a custom one.
That's what it's a custom.
We're testing on now.
When do you guys choose to use cut bait? Tony, you've done quite a few cut bait. White, you've done a little bit. We've done some. I'll let Tony answer that one from Justin and Megan. The Hoopas.
Yeah, cut bait. That's really, if I'm going after, big fish, doesn't matter if it's redfish, snook, they all will eat cut bait, and sea trout even. And also during like the extreme weather periods, when it's really hot in the summertime, and also when it's really cold in the wintertime, when those fish are at their laziest because they don't want to chase something down. They're cruising around, they pick up scent, something sitting on the bottom. It's easier for them to pick up. That's when I like to use cut bait. So especially during the fall, when we have a lot of the bull reds schooled up, that's a great time to use cut bait, whether it be cut mullet, cut blue crab, all works really good. Nice, easy meal for those fish.
Mm-hmm. Can y'all add the bait casters from Bull Bay for those? Yeah, we are going to do some bait casters some point. We're probably going to have a, you guys are saying no.
I was just joking.
Yeah, we'll add it. I'm sad to admit, not sad to admit, I'm proud to admit that I'm becoming more of a bait caster fan. I've started using them, and I'm finally seeing a type of fishing that they're better. So I'll say it. It pains me to say it. I've been kind of not an opponent, but I was all bait caster for a while, and then I realized like braid came out, and spinning rods with braid are amazing. But I've been doing a lot of dock fishing, testing out this shrimp lure that we're coming out with, and been cutting some big fish near docks, and the break off has been a big issue because the thicker the braid, I'm using all braid mainline, and the thicker the braid with spinning reels, you can't cast it very good. So going up to like a 20 or even especially a 30 pound or more braid on like a lighter tackle spinning setup, it's very cumbersome. The casting ability significantly drops. On bait casting, it doesn't drop. So now I can use this very light bait caster. I can cast all day long using 30-pound braid, and the casting accuracy is just as good, if not better, than using like a 10-pound braid.
Dude, so I got 50 on mine, on my Daiwa. Yep.
But yeah, I just have 30 on there, and it's a really light setup. It's actually like probably a little bit lighter than some of my lighter spinning rods. And it packs a punch. It has more drag capacity and it has a faster retrieve, so that when I'm fishing the pilings, most of the strikes happen within 5 feet of the pilings. And so when I get further away, I can get it in faster and make another cast. So I'm going to start having bait casters on my boat more often.
Nice. Tavis, my boy Tavis from the Keys. We missed you last time, dude. We had some beers at your favorite little place there, the brewery. Says Beard's looking strong-ish. Well, for Luke, I agree. Tony, Wyatt, and myself, we need to work on our beards for the next Tackle Tuesday. This is last minute. We kept hearing more Tackle Tuesday. We're like, let's just do it. This has been fun. We got to wrap this up because I got to go. With this cold front right now, what would be a good tip for going out tomorrow by Ron Miller? Kind of depends on where you are, I guess, but
it depends on where
Tony, you're fishing tomorrow. What's your plan? You don't have to say where.
So I'm really looking for wind protection and muddy bottom, darker bottom. That seems to be like one of my main things to look for after a cold front comes through. I mean, the temperatures have been pretty stable the past 3 days, after that front came through, especially tomorrow. It's, a gradual warming trend, but I'd still be looking for wind protection and that darker bottom.
Wyatt, Luke, any tips?
I would say points specifically. It's just been transition time here in the fall. There's a lot of fish on the move. Ron, I don't know exactly where you are. I know here in the Carolinas, we've got migratory trout that are moving in. Almost every single trout I'm finding on a point, mainly the ones that are at creek mouths, but points are super key. Reds have been pushed a little bit further back. I'm just seeing a lot of fish that are on the move, and they're definitely their behavior is in line with trying to either get ahead of cold weather or adjusting to cold weather when it's occurring. So just kind of look for warmth, like Tony said, darker spots, things like that. Just got to think about what each species is doing in your area that time, or just kind of what their migratory patterns are. And then you can kind of plan out those spots, high probability areas.
Yeah. And those fish that, if you found fish before the cold front, they're not going to be too far from where you found them before the cold front came through. If anything, they're going to be just off that flat. They may be on the edge of the flat, or they may push down to if there's a creek nearby, they may push down to that deeper channel in the creek. They're not going to go too far. It's a gradual movement throughout the fall and into the winter. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, so I'd look for deeper water, like deeper, just like what Tony's saying, and in points too. If you can find deeper water with a point that has structure, that's going to have fish, because they're pushing that cold water will push them off the shallows. And another reason why I've been fishing docks a lot, because the docks will go from shallow to deep, all have structure, so they can go in and out without exposing themselves to dolphin. So I'll be having my bait caster with me these upcoming trips.
And if you're one of our insider members, definitely look at the spot dissection that we just posted this week. I actually picked out a spot on the satellite map and showed it and talked about, what I would be looking for as far as fishing after a cold front comes through, the types of areas based on the wind, tides, and all that. So definitely be sure to check that one out.
Just one more reason to join the Insider Club. We got real-time trends going up every single hour now from all the fishing reports. We got the coaching, which we're really big on inside the club and the private community. We have the discounts now 20 to even 30% off on all this top tackle, including some of this unique stuff we're talking about today. And then finally, just the network, the power of the network. We've got great captains like Peter Deeks and Tom Ray, who was in here, Captain Hollywood, who we've mentioned. And now we're up to 17,500 members as of today, as we're recording this. So we appreciate you guys big time. And if you haven't joined, come join us. We got a 365-day, 100% money back guarantee, especially if you're going to buy any tackle this Christmas, like no brainer. I mean, you're talking 20 to 30% off everything. And we will have a massive amount of reels and rods coming in. We want to be careful not to say a specific date because we literally don't know, but it's happening. Like the orders are in, we're seeing them slowly starting to move our way. A couple other things. Heard from Daniel Nussbaum, the president of Z-Man. the Z-Man Slam Shady, at least in the 3-inch. Like, they're already producing them. They're bagging them. They're going to start sending them here really soon. So we will have on fishstrong.com on our shop page. Be looking for it because those are going to go fast. And we're going to get a small amount to start. That's going to be the 3-inch Slam Shady in the Minnow Z with Z-Man. Also got the shrimp Luke mentioned. Also got a new boat coming. Got the new 24 Pathfinder with the tower. That's going to enable us to do a whole lot more footage, to do a whole lot of different types of fishing, and we're really, really pumped to have that. It's getting really close to being done. And then finally, we'll be testing out some scent, a new custom scent that I think the one thing I can say about it, it reeks in a good way. Like, it's like, wow. I mean, it smells like dead crabs and fish and shrimp and mullet all meshed up together, but it's got something that's really unique that we're not going to share yet because I don't want to give away who's doing this, but it's a really, really unique scent, and we're testing it out. We'll have some video footage on that. And if it works like we think this is going to work, just based on the smell, we'll start offering it in the store as well. And of course, Insider members will get 20% off. So that's it. If you guys have any more questions, hit us up. We'll go back and look at some of these. Join now, says Matt George. That's worth it. Yes. Thank you, Matt. Love the club. Thank you, Ron. Hope to have a member meet again. Yes, we all do. That's big on our list for next year. Hopefully all this COVID stuff, I don't know that it's going to go away completely, but it's certainly got to get better at some point where we can go out and do a whole lot more of these meetups. So it is definitely on the list.
And there is some too. So Tom Ray had a comment up there too. So he's actually organizing a meetup, and it's this Sunday. And he said it might be sold out though, but it's on the Flying Hub. So yeah, for the community members, get in that meetup section. There's been more and more activity in there.
Yep. Old Tom Bowden. Yeah. He's got the 24 Pathfinder. Yes. Awesome boat. And then, yeah, yes, Ron. And it's a scent that, I mean, we're not manufacturing it. We've teamed up with some like legit scientists who do this kind of stuff to try to come up with what we believe could be the best scent just on all the stuff that we've read and that we've studied. So it'll be interesting. You got to test all this stuff out first. And it's gone through a couple little renditions. And now we've got it like really stinking. In a good way. So,
and before, again, if we do it, we're going to be testing it against the others out there and to make sure that it is legit before we ever put it up there. So
not just legit, too legit to quit. It's got to be the best. Cool, guys. We appreciate you all. Go to saltstrong.com to sign up for the Insider Club. If you haven't, go to fishstrong.com. That's the tackle side of our business. So the tackle store is fishstrong.com, and we are adding new stuff. It feels like every single day now, if not every other day. A lot of stuff coming in. So we appreciate you big time. Thank you guys that participated live here on Tackle Tuesday. And this is fun. Let us know. Shoot some comments down below. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about next. What other topics? We did some reels. We did back-to-back reel episodes were really popular. We haven't done one on rods. Maybe we should just do one on rods. Have we? If we haven't, it's been forever.
No, just a lot of rod tests over the years, but I never detailed one on them.
Cool. Thanks, Cody, for sticking around the whole time. Guys, appreciate y'all. We out. Peace.
Guys, later.
Whoop, whoop.